Welcome back. This morning, President Trump is saying he's moving forward with more cuts to federal agencies as the government shutdown moves into day 2. And helping him make those decisions, Russell Vought, the head of the Office of Management and Budget. And as the president has mentioned, he's a key author of Project 2025. Plans that got so much attention during the campaign. Vought has already announced several of the cuts since the shutdown began and has emerged as a key member of the president's team.
You all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown.
But who exactly is Russell Vought, and how did he get all this power? Let's get more from New York Times Washington correspondent Coral Davenport, who just wrote a very extensive piece on the White House budget director. Coral, thanks so much for joining us. We just heard the president praising Vought for his cuts. How did he come to earn the president's trust, and what do we know about his plans and priorities?
Sure. So Russ Vought has been with the Trump administration since the first term. He was deputy budget director and then budget director in the first term. In that first White House term, he was involved. He kind of tried to use the power of the White House to cut off spending. He was involved in the decision to cut off Ukraine spending, which ended up getting the president impeached, to reroute money for building the wall, which ended up getting canceled, to try to fire employees kind of at will, thousands of federal employees. All of those were ideas that he really embraced, that he wanted the president to be able to do, that kind of fell apart. And he spent the 4 years of the Biden administration kind of relentlessly working. He started his own think tank. He worked with Project 2025 on this project of how can the president do these things and have them stick? And because he's a budget director, he thought of using the tools, the levers of the federal budget. How can the president get the power to cut off spending, to stop spending, to shut down federal agencies, to fire workers, to shrink down the government to, the size that you could fit it in a teacup? He has spent all this time really working, researching, planning, mapping, strategizing this in a deeply disciplined and focused way. And
why is he so set on shrinking the federal government? Where does that even come from?
Yeah, I mean, he's a conservative's conservative. He grew up in a very Christian home. He's deeply religious. He went to an evangelical Christian college, Wheaton College in Illinois. His first job in Washington was with Republican Senator Phil Gramm, who was sort of known as the most unloved man in Washington for his efforts to cut the budget. I think he's talked about how he felt like for his parents, he grew up in a blue collar family. His parents were a teacher and electrician, that the burden of paying for federal government really dragged them down. He's also talked about his interpretation of the Constitution. He calls himself a radical constitutionalist who thinks the founding fathers wouldn't recognize agencies like the Federal Reserve. So I think he really is a true believer. He thinks that, the administrative state is not recognized by the Constitution, and he says it's infected by, federal workers who are woke and weaponized and sort of liberal leaning and aren't accountable to the president and to voters. So he comes at this from a place of kind of a true believer who has been working on this, realizing this, executing this for about 20 years.
Well, and he, as you mentioned, had an impact in the first Trump administration. Now he's got this humongous role in the second Trump administration, and it seems like there are really no bounds being applied to this presidency. And you have anti-tax activist Grover Norquist, you quote in your piece, saying that Vought has, been lining up the billiards shots, getting each ball in place one by one for each consecutive move. So help us understand the vision and what it looks like moving forward, because we already went through Doge. We already went through Elon Musk and all these, tens of thousands laid off. What else does Vought have planned? What does he want to do?
Vought is in a lot of ways the anti-Musk. Musk kind of parachuted into Washington with so much chaos, so much haphazard action. Vought has a really clear roadmap, a really clear plan. And his ultimate end game is to continue to do these cuts, but he is orchestrating, essentially setting up a showdown in the Supreme Court. He believes, the people around him have told me, that if he can get these cuts, these moves to give the president the power to unilaterally cut federal spending, if he can get one of these cases to go before the Supreme Court will ultimately find that that the president does constitutionally have the power to cut off whatever funding he wants, or something along those lines. And he if that happens, if that end game plays out in that way, then that really just reshapes the presidency and gives this president the power to really just cut down the government and legally.
Well, Coral Davenport, you have such good deep dive reporting on the New York Times. Thanks for sharing some of it with us and helping us understand the influences right now on the president as we're charting this moment, charting forward.